The first part of the learning process between, let's just say this leg here, is like Act 1 of a screenplay. Between the introduction of the object and the perception of the object, that's like the beginning of learning, or the beginning of a story, where you introduce objects, you introduce ideas, and you have some character who is your primary viewpoint character, representing perception. This is like the beginning of a story. Between these 2 points, that's like Act 2. Going from perception to evaluation to deduction, that takes a long time. That's why Act 2 is longer, because we don't always immediately know the answer to a question. And then deduction would be similar to the crisis, where your character is in the hole and now he needs to come up with his biggest plan yet. So between deduction and conclusion is kind of like Act 3 of a screenplay. So the emotions felt at the beginning of learning and as we're perceiving something are similar to the emotions that the audience feels in the beginning of a movie. The audience might think, I'm lost here, I don't know what's going on. So we have to structure and lay out the film in such a way that hopefully it makes sense. And then when we move from perception into evaluation and deduction, there are just certain feelings that you feel when you're learning and when you're watching a movie. This would be the beginning part of perception, of the cognitive process, where we're introduced to new ideas, new characters, and then this is the struggle. This is where we evaluate and we form deductions, and then you figure out what the object is not. You figure out what the solution is not. And this would be the ending of the learning process, the climax, the resolution. And here is where it really becomes a secret weapon, is that there are certain types of characters that are found in all of these classical stories, like a protagonist. There are certain characters that you find going all the way back to Shakespeare and classical Greek plays, that there's usually a protagonist, and that protagonist is the object of our attention. It's what we're following, what we're paying attention to. There's also a primary viewpoint character. There's some character who we're experiencing the story through their eyes and ears and emotions, and that relates to the cognitive concept of perception. Usually it's the same character. Usually the protagonist is the viewpoint character, but it's not always the case. Every story happens in a system. There's always a world of the story. It could be a galaxy far, far away. It could be Hogwarts. It could be the Shawshank Redemption prison. Every story happens in some space. So cognitively, the system would be our minds, but in a story, the system would be the setting, wherever the story takes place. There's a system character, somebody who controls the system, whether it's Darth Vader or the Warden or Agent Smith. You find these archetypes, you find these human archetypes that correspond with these different functions of human learning and thinking. And it's just fascinating to me. This is explained in the character lesson, but I'm giving you a little sneak peek here.